G'day virtual pilots, it's Requiem. In today's debrief we're using the Hawker Tempest, which is one of the new airplanes that have been added, and it's also included the patch so you have better visibility, and the physiological effects on the pilot from the G-forces are included. So starting off, I'm working with a couple of guys on Discord, and just as I'm pulling around the corner here, see a Focke-Wulf, but kind of catch a glimpse of something off in the corner. Looks like he's starting to pull lead, so we'll try and do a little bit of a defensive barrel roll here, but he ends up hitting me, but luckily not too bad. So the 109's approaching with a high amount of closure in the turn, so I'm trying to do this defensive barrel roll here, just to try and force him to overshoot a little bit faster and present a harder target for him to hit. So luckily he only hits me once. So here we see him overshoot me with a lot of extra airspeed, so I'm not going to be able to do much. And instead of following him up in the climb and check behind, I spot another one. So the same maneuver again, just to force the overshoot. This time the closure for the Focke-Wulf isn't as high. So this is basically the same scenario. So again, I'm going to pull into him, begin my roll, and then force the overshoot. Now as the 190 goes past, it's pretty apparent that he doesn't have the same kind of airspeed advantage that the 109 earlier did. So this will give me some time to attack him for a few seconds. And we see the 109 come back into frame. So this will let me know that I have a few more seconds to continue attacking this 190. I'm pretty sure I've hit him, so I'll fire a few more rounds to continue pushing him away, and then I'll break off and then try and locate where that 109 is relative to me. Now I'm on Discord with a few guys at the moment, and one of them who's flying nearby with me is Scout, and he's in the Mark 9. So we've been giving each other callouts, so I know where he is and I figured him out, so we can rejoin for a little bit here. Now I'm still trying to locate where that 109 is, and even though the icon's there, it didn't see him at the time. Not until I turn left here do I see the 109 tracking across the ground, just about now. So I zoom in, identify it, and I know where Scout is behind into my high right 5 o'clock. So I'm going to level off here and direct Scout to where that 109 is relative to me, and this will allow the 109 to continue chasing me, while Scout will roll over and fall in behind the 109. So here we see the 109 is chasing me, and he has a good airspeed advantage right now, so he's going to catch me relatively quickly. So Scout then spots him, and he can roll in and come down behind unnoticed, and hopefully he can close in position to gain a shot. So while I'm trying to drag this 109, it's apparent he has a lot of closure on me, so I need to start getting evasive. So I'm going to reverse and feint going into a flat scissors, and then just continue my roll and pull going downhill, see if he wants to follow, which he doesn't. So as he pulls up and away, I'll just bring myself back to point my nose towards him, and then knowing where Scout is, he's following that 109. He's in a better position than me, I think, right here, so I'm happy to relegate myself to just supporting Scout as he presses his attack to threaten the 109 at least. And I'm just going to try and focus on clearing Scout 6 so he can focus on the 109 exclusively. So what ends up happening with this is Scout continues following the 109 down to the deck. The 109 ends up exiting off, so it ends up as a stalemate, and then Scout and I rejoin. Right, so after that engagement, started turning off back towards the north where we were originally, and I see a bit of action in front of us here. There's a P51 and a 109, and P51 has a lot of airspeed, so he ends up overshooting. Not really sure who's who. And once I identified that as a P51, I start applying some negative G and then pulling in behind the 109, but I make a mistake because I end up pulling too hard, and this causes me to black out. So we're going to replay this at 25% speed. Now once I identified that as being a P51, I start applying the negative G to change my flight path because I know the 109 is going to be behind him, and I'm having to regain sight. But then once I regain sight, the G I need to pull in this turn to attain a shot is too great, and so I apply too much G too fast. And you can see just as after I started shooting, I'm actually at 8.5 Gs. So because I'm at such a high G load very quickly, you can expect that I'm going to be passed out pretty quick because the Tempest pilots don't have a G suit. I do score a hit, however the problem is I end up passing out and I don't have control of the airplane, so I'm just flying along in a straight line. Now overshooting in close like this and blacking out is a very bad situation, and luckily the 109 didn't actually look in my direction, so he might have been wounded when I hit him there. So now I'm going to climb back up and get into position to make another attack, but I need to keep in mind that because I did black out, it's likely that my G tolerance might be a little bit lower than usual. So as I'm coming down, I don't want to come down with a whole bunch of airspeed and risk blacking out as I pull out of the dive. So I'm going to be at idle power, and I'm going to come down and make this attack against the 109. Now, I make a mistake with this is that after I do the shooting, I do put him on fire, but I ended up just making the pull out directly in front of him to try and maintain sight, when I really should have made those shots and then maybe broken away to the right instead. As this may have made it a little bit harder for him if he wanted to point his nose and try and shoot at me. Now a little bit later on in the Sortie, I'm by myself, heading west along the coast here, and one of the other members in the Discord channel, Omen, calls out that he's got some contacts up back to the east, so I know where I am relative to him, so I start turning back towards the east to investigate that. And I see some traces, so I know there's at least one enemy in that direction, so I'll head over there and have a look. So I've just speeded up until we get into position. So Omen out there on the P51 working on single 109. Now all I can do from here is provide position reports for Omen if anyone's going to be attacking him. And then I end up spotting another 109 here up against the cloud at high 11 o'clock or so. And I thought this guy was going to continue turning to press onto Omen during his attack, but he ended up spotting me and thinking of me as a bigger threat. He pulled in towards me, so I kind of go nose high here as he comes downhill and perform a lead turn, trying to make him pull some extra G. He ends up hitting me once, but luckily he didn't suffer any major damage. Now coming uphill at the 109, I didn't give myself enough turning room here and allowed the 109 to take it away from me. So even though I did get this turn in, he was able to pull enough lead using his G to get a shot, but luckily he only just hit me a little bit, and this allows me to continue back towards him. Now the 109 has extra energy than me here, so he's just going to go straight back up, and I thought I might have been able to pull up here, so as I start raising the nose I can just kind of sense the lack of airspeed, so I'm going to unload a little bit and come down, and then watching the 109 come through. Judging where his flight path is going to be, I'll try and overbank here just to get out of his flight path so he can't pull lead. And he's got a lot of closure here, so I can just continue my rolling to the left with the pull and cutting the power so I don't accelerate too much. Reintroduce the power and start climbing. And he kind of loses a little bit of control here, which allows me to come in behind and gain some position for a shot. And manage to score a couple of hits. Alright, so the 109 is above me here, and I can't get that shot, so I unload, and I'll turn into the 109 to take away any of the horizontal turning room he has, and this will force him to use more vertical turning room to come down on top of me. So as we can see, as I turn in towards him, he's pretty steep in his dive, so this is going to result in a high G pull out for him, and because of my lower airspeed, he'll overshoot. I can roll in and come behind, and then I'm in nice and close here, but he ends up losing a little bit of control. And this is what allows me to come in and take the shot. Now this pair of 109s is working together, and we can see number 2 is now coming over to assist number 1. Now I'll be unable to follow the 109, and what he's doing is he's out of control. But once he regains control, he begins diving away to the west, and this is done to drag me for his number 2. And just as Omen calls out that he's about to be in range, I see the traces and I start maneuvering. So just to replay this, I'm in slow motion, you can see the traces, there'll be one pair and then another pair. That's the indicator for me to quickly get evasive and look behind me. So that's a matter of initiating that roll and pull to force him to go past me. And since he's going to be a little bit closer without a great deal of closure away from me, I can switch to him and try and pull in for a shot. But this leaves the other 109 unattended. So the other 109 comes in for a last ditch high aspect shot, which doesn't quite get me, and then this 109 in front of me, I'm able to score some hits and reevaluate where number 1 ended up going, and it looks like he's bailing out. Alright, so kicking this off here, we see I'm being dragged by 109 number 1, just getting evasive to force that overshoot out of number 2, and he doesn't really want to follow as he knows the 51 is on his tail as well. And since I switched to number 2, the number 119 is now free, who gets called over to attack me in this high aspect shot. So these two are coordinating pretty well. But they didn't end up scoring too much damage on me there, so I'm able to continue staying in close to number 2 to finish him off. And number 1 will bail out. So there's number 1's airplane hitting the water, and number 2, according to Omen, is also bailed out. Now I've got Omen out there in front of me, just about to start attacking a 190, and the 190 begins to dive and starts going under the clouds, and Omen's in pursuit. I do lose visual with Omen as he goes under the cloud base, so he ends up pointing out that he's coming back up, and the 190 is going to be in pursuit. So I can see Omen blasting out of the cloud here, and looking behind him I know the 190 is there. Now the thing to look for in this is, because the 190 is climbing, his airspeed is going to be dropping. So if he continues raising that nose, he's going to be a very low airspeed, and this means I'm going to have an almost zero deflection shot, and that makes it for a very easy kill. So this one worked out pretty well for us because we had good communication and we were aware of each other's position. So as Omen begins to climb here, we can see the speed disparity between him and the 190. And with the 190 wanting to continue following him in that climb, it just leaves him open to this shot. So ideally the 190 would have broken off a little bit earlier and been able to at least get back underneath that cloud layer and maybe break some side and disengage. But instead he ends up getting killed here. In this, Omen and I were over the top of an enemy port, providing some cover for another P-51 on frequency who's making an attack on the ships there. And we are aware of the other airplane above him, so we're just keeping an eye on that and seeing what happens, whether he's enemy or friendly. We can't really tell that yet. Now, as he starts coming down, that's kind of an indicator that he's going to be enemy, so we call that out to the P-51 down the bottom, just to make him aware this guy is coming in down to make an attack. So this is going to bring me down into an attack against this other airplane. If I knew our friendly was down there, I probably would have gone down to a bit of a lower altitude so I could support him a little bit faster. So right now he has to rely on himself to get out of danger. So in this dive I'm at idle power and I'm doing a forward slip to help prevent overspeeding of the airframe. So after I continue rolling here, get a better vision of where that 190 is in position. So we see he's closing on the P-51, so I make out the call to him to brake to the left and continue that brake. I'm going to watch what the 190 is doing. And the 190 isn't going to follow in that, so he's going to go uphill, and that means I can now come in and take a pretty much uncontested shot. And what we'll see here is that 190 is going to be inverted, getting ready to come back down. I'm not going to go inverted because I don't want to risk trying to pull and follow him, so I'm just going to take my shot and then climb if I needed to. Score a couple of hits until I run out of ammunition and he ends up bailing out. Now as we'll see here, the 190 coming down to make his attack against the Mustang. Now the Mustang does a pretty good brake turn here to avoid the 190 for the most part. So the 190 really only has one option. He can't continue the turn or else the 51 will reverse inside of him. So he kind of has to go uphill here and hope to use that altitude to make another pass. But as we see, I'm coming down above and I didn't want to come back inverted because with my extra airspeed I wouldn't be able to stay inside and pull lead without blacking out. So it's much easier for me to take the shot here and then go uphill. So if the 190 goes downhill, I'd have the altitude to use against him if I had enough ammunition for it. So then I ended up RTBing and making it back to the base to make a pretty average landing. Kind of misjudged my height above the ground here as I came into land. Plane wasn't quite ready. One little bounce, hold it off and then come back down again. But that completes the debrief for this Tempest Sortie. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to share it with your friends and become a subscriber. And until next time, remember to always fly safe and check your six.